Welcome to this AQA GCSE Geography Revision Blast. Today we're focusing on resource management, looking at the UK overview before moving on to the water option. This is part of the Challenge of Resource Management on Paper 2. Our first activity is altered vowels. Each of the key terms shown have had the vowels changed to an alternative, which makes them tricky to work out. You just need to work out what the key phrases are, and they are all linked to the UK overview of resource management. To give you a little bit of a clue, the first two are going to be about food, 3 and 4 are about water, and 5 and 6 are about energy. So here we go. So this one is to do with food. Okay, hopefully it's a nice easy one to get started. It is food miles, which is the distance covered supplying food to customers from field to fork. Right, number 2. Again, to do with food. So this is something that has increased in popularity over the last couple of decades. Let's have a look. It is organic produce. It's food produced without the use of chemicals, so not using fertilisers and not using pesticides. Right, this one is to do with water. Okay, let's have a look at what it might be. So let's reveal. It is a water stress. This is when the demand for water exceeds the supply in a certain period or when poor quality restricts the use of that. Okay, also to do with water. Okay, let's reveal. It is water transfer scheme, so matching supply with demand by moving water from an area with a water surplus to another experiencing water deficit. So in the UK, you might move water from the northwest down to the southeast. Right, the last two, remember, are to do with energy. So what do we think this one might be? So let's reveal. It is the energy mix, a range of energy sources of a region or a country, both renewable and non-renewable. And this changes all the time. It changes day to day, but it also changes over the long term as well. So if we think about over the long term, we are using much less fossil fuels than we've used in the past, but they also change on a daily basis. So we might have some days in the UK where we have a huge proportion of energy that is produced using wind power because we have windy days. It changes day to day based on sort of different variables. Right, last one for altered vowels. Okay, have we spotted it yet? Let's have a look. It is energy security. So this is the idea of uninterrupted availability of energy sources at an affordable price. And we could argue that in the UK that we don't really have this at the moment. We're very dependent on other countries for our energy, which means that it makes our supply quite insecure anyway. And our prices in the last year have skyrocketed. Much of that is down to the Ukraine and Russia conflict, but we've also got energy companies creaming off huge profits and not really passing those on to their consumers. And we were warned before Christmas that over the winter months we might actually find we had blackouts, although we didn't, but we were warned that that could happen. Right, let's move on to our next activity. So we are focusing on food miles, so that was our first altered vowels. What we would like you to do is to put these imports in order of food miles from those travelled the furthest to those who have travelled the least distance. So if you pause the video for a moment, pop them in the right order, so furthest away first. And then once you've got them in what you think is the right order, unpause the video and we will check to see whether you have got them right or not. Okay, if you haven't paused already, please do. Let's reveal the answers. So in the first place, we've got lamb from New Zealand travelling over 18,000 kilometres, in fact 18,800 kilometres. We then got beef from Argentina coming across the Atlantic, travelling 11,600 kilometres. Prawns from Thailand at 9,500 kilometres. Mangoes from Brazil at 9,200 kilometres. beans from Kenya at 6,800 kilometres, and bananas from Dominica in the Caribbean, which is 5,500 kilometres. Okay, and there are all sorts of issues with food miles, obviously, particularly the amount of CO2 that is emitted if you are bringing in products from thousands of miles away. Right, we're going to move on to a red herring round this time. So you are going to see 4 items. You have to decide what's the odd one out and why. And we've got 3 of these to complete. So our first one is here. So washing clothes, showering, flushing toilets, and manufacturing. Which of those is the 4? Sorry, which of those 4 is the odd one out and why? So if you can pause the video for a moment if you need a little bit of time to think. So let's reveal the answer, which is the odd one out and why. It is manufacturing, because the other 3 are domestic uses of water. Right, let's move on to number 2. Increase in water intensive appliances, growing population, more homes are being built, and water conservation. Which of the 4 items is the odd one out and why? Again, if you need to pause to have a little bit of think, please do. So which of those is the odd one out and why? Let's reveal. It is water conservation. The others are for reasons why the UK demand for water is increasing. Right, our last red herring is this. Industrial discharge, impose fines, fertiliser runoff, and chemicals from old mine workings. Which of the 4 items is the odd one out and why? Okay, pause the video if you need to. We are about to reveal. Okay, it is imposing fines. The others are sources of water pollution, and obviously you can be given fines if you are caught as a company dumping any of those things into local rivers. Let's move on to a connection wall. So on the screen you have 12 phrases. These need grouping into 3, and they are all to do with water and conservation. So what we're going to do is we're going to get you to think about the 3 different groups of phrases here, but we're going to give you a little bit of a clue. So I'm going to ask you firstly to find 4 phrases that are linked to recycled or reclaimed water. So 4 phrases that are linked to recycled or reclaimed water. Pause the video for a moment. Note down the 4 that you think are about recycled and reclaimed water. When you're happy that you've got the right 4, unpause the video and we will check your answers. If you haven't paused the video, please do so, as we are about to reveal the first group. Right, let's have a look then. So our recycled and our reclaimed water are used in cooling, in steel making and energy production, reusing treated domestic or industrial wastewater, used in fish farming and agriculture, and sewage pumped into lagoons to help algae grow and oxygenate water. So these are all to do with recycled and reclaimed water. So our next group is to do with grey water. Okay, so our next group of 4 is to do with grey water. If you haven't already paused the video, please do so, because we are about to reveal. So grey water is used for irrigation and watering plants. It's taken from sinks, baths, showers, washing machines. It may contain traces of dirt, food, grease, hair, and cleaning products. And if used within 24 hours, it provides valuable fertiliser for plants. What we would like you to do now is work out what links the last 4. So we've got turn off tap when brushing teeth, only use washing machines and dishwashers for a full load, install low flow shower heads, and install a twin flush toilet system. What links this remaining 4 on the screen? I'll just give you a moment. If you need a bit longer, then please pause. So what links are last ones? Let's have a look. We've got turning tap on when brushing teeth, only using washing machines and dishwashers when they are full, installing a low flow shower head, or installing a twin flush toilet system. And of course, they are all ways to save water at home. If you work that out, then well done. Right, let's move on to a bubble quiz. So with a bubble quiz, the number of answers that are correct can range from 0 to all 4. Your job is to identify the correct ones. Question 1. Why has the UK's demand for energy decreased? So A, new homes being built. B, decline of heavy industry. C, better home insulation. D, population growth. So why has the UK's demand for energy decreased? Okay, let's reveal the answers. It is B and C, decline of heavy industry and better home insulation. Number 2, which of these energy sources are non-renewable? Is it A, oil, B, coal, C, gas, D, nuclear? Okay, identify the correct answers. There we are, oil, coal and gas. Number 3, which of these issues are associated with wind farms? A, risk to birds. B, visual impact on the landscape. C, decommissioning process. D, wastewater going into habitats. So which are associated with wind farms? Let's reveal. It is the risk to birds and the visual impact on the landscape. Number 4. Which of these countries does the UK import coal from? France, Colombia, Australia or the USA? So we're looking for countries that we import coal from. So Colombia, Australia and the USA, we do not import coal from France. And question 5, which of these are associated with fracking? A, fewer emissions than traditional sources. B, the possibility of earthquakes. C, pollution of groundwater. And D, expensive extraction process. So we'll just leave those up for a moment. So which are associated with fracking? Let's reveal the answers. It is all of them. So it is a really controversial way of creating energy. Let's move on to a categorised activity. We are focusing on nuclear energy with this activity. We have down the side 8 impacts of nuclear energy. You have a minute to sort them into economic and environmental. Off we go. Okay, let's have a look. So our economic impacts are that it's expensive to build, high cost to produce electricity, decommissioning is expensive, but it does create jobs and boost local economy by the new plants. There are lots of environmental impacts. It does produce fewer emissions than other non-renewable sources. Processing and storing is difficult. There is a potential for toxic or radioactive spills, and the warm water that comes as a waste byproduct impacts river habitats. And our final activity of the UK overview section of this revision blast is a quick MCQ round. So we've got 5 multiple choice questions. Our first one is, in 2016, how much of the UK's primary energy supply came from renewable energy? Was it A, 7%, B, 17%, C, 27%, D, 37%? Let's reveal, it is 17%. It has in the last few years increased significantly beyond that. Number 2, in which sea does the UK have the largest reserves of oil and gas? Is it A, the Irish Sea, B, the English Channel, C, the North Sea, or D, the Celtic Sea? Let's reveal. It is the North Sea. So there are lots of platforms, particularly off the coast of Scotland, where lots of oil and gas drilling takes place. Number 3. Identify the main form of renewable energy used to produce the UK's electricity supply. Is it A, hydroelectric power, B, solar, C, wind, or is it D, tidal? Okay, let's reveal. It is wind. And there were some occasions last year where on certain days of the year, wind energy accounted for about 35% of all energy in the energy mix that day. Number 4, identify the form of energy which can be extracted using the process of fracking. Is it A, oil, B, coal, C, shale gas, or is it D, bitumen? Okay, let's reveal. It is shale gas, so it's a gas that's stored in rocks. And our last question before we move on to the optional topic is number 5. Which type of energy makes use of uranium? Is it A, nuclear, B, wind, C, biomass, or D, hydroelectric power? Let's reveal. It is, of course, nuclear. So well done if you got those correct. Right, we've finished the UK overview, so we are going to now move on to the water option. So we are going to start off with a 60-second challenge. You've got 60 seconds to match the key phrases to the definitions, matching the letters to the left with the numbers on the right. Let's go. Okay, if you need a little bit more time to match those 8 key terms up with their definitions, then please pause the video. Let's reveal the answers. So A5 is water insecurity, when water availability is not enough to ensure the population of an area enjoys good health, livelihood and earnings. Water stress is B8, when the demand for water exceeds the available amount during a certain period or poor quality restricts its use. C3, over abstraction, when water is used more quickly than it is being replaced. D6 is aquifer, an underground layer of saturated permeable rock. E2 is waterborne diseases, diseases caused by microorganisms that are transmitted in contaminated water such as cholera and typhoid. Irrigation is F1, applying water to land in order to supply crops and other plants with the necessary water. G4 is water surplus, where water supply is greater than demand. And desalination is H7, the process of removing salts and minerals from seawater. Well done if you got all those correct. Let's move on to a 30-second challenge. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds. I want you to note down some reasons why water consumption is increasing. Off you go. Okay, let's have a look at what you could have got down. So we've got population growth is a big reason for it, but then we've also got economic development. So with economic development, that brings a growth of commercial agriculture. It also brings a growth of thirsty industries, those ones that use lots of water in production. So for example, plastics and textiles, and the rise in living standards. So when people have a bit more money, they start embracing technology that is quite water heavy, so washing machines and dishwashers, etc. Right, let's go and do another one. What are our main sources of water? 30 seconds, off you go. Okay, let's see how we got on. So our main sources of water are rivers and lakes, which can be transported by pipeline to where it's needed. We've got aquifers, which are those natural underground stores where water collects in porous rocks. We get water from these through extracting through boreholes or by drilling big wells. And we also have reservoirs, which are artificial lakes usually created by building a dam across a valley and allowing it to flood. And we have lots of these around the UK, particularly up in the north of England, but they are also heavily used around the world. Right, next one. What physical factors affect water ability? So 30 seconds starts now. Okay, let's have a look. So we've got climate. So, for example, the areas with the most available water are those with tropical or temperate humid climates. Therefore, those people are going to have much more access to water. We've got most mountainous areas also receive large amounts of precipitation. So if you live in those areas, you have plenty of water. But we've also got geology. So important in terms of creating aquifers or groundwater stores, because obviously only some rocks will be able to let that water through. Here is our last 30-second challenge. How do people affect water availability? Off we go. Okay, let's have a look. So we have pollution, with water supplies becoming unfit for human use, meaning less safe water is available. So that obviously increases the risk of things like cholera. And that can be a problem in any country, but it's a particular problem in low-income countries where the environmental laws are more relaxed. So factories, for example, will take advantage of that by dumping toxic chemicals and dyes and all sorts into the water. Over-abstraction, when pumping water from rivers and lakes, takes place at a faster rate than it is being replenished by rainfall, so particularly for irrigation. We've got limited infrastructure for collection and delivery, and this might mean that water may be wasted, so we might have lots of leaking pipes, for example. And then you've got the issue of poverty, where the water might be really unsafe, and the only safe source of water is bottled water, but this is obviously very expensive and unaffordable for many. Okay, let's move on to a Give Me 3 activity. We're looking for 3 impacts of water insecurity on food production. You've got 30 seconds. Okay, let's have a look. So 3 impacts of water insecurity on food production. We've got the increased need for irrigation, we've got lower crop yields, and the quality of livestock decreases. So well done if you got those. Let's do another one. This time we're looking at impacts of water security on industrial output, and we need 3 again, and you've got 30 seconds again. Okay, let's have a look. So 3 impacts of water insecurity on industrial output are: the cost of water increases, which affects profits, so the product prices would have to rise to compensate. We've got thirsty manufacturing industries affected, such as textiles, iron and steel. And then we've got less energy production, so for example, less hydroelectric power, but also less water for cooling in coal, gas and nuclear power stations, which is a really important thing to have in those. Right, let's move on to a categorised activity. So we're still looking at water insecurity, but this time we have got 8 impacts of water insecurity and we want to pop them into the following categories. So are they social and political impacts of water insecurity? Are they economic impacts? Are they environmental impacts? You've got a minute. Off we go. Okay, let's have a look at the correct columns. So in terms of social and political, we've got the waterborne diseases, a drinking water shortage, or certainly a safe drinking water shortage. We've got tensions, and obviously that can lead to conflict. In terms of economic impacts, we've got lower productivity and we've got the rising costs. So we did cover that in the activity just a moment ago. And then our environmental impacts of water insecurity are pollution, and we've also got over abstraction of those water sources. Well done if you got those correct. Right, one of the ways that many HICs increase their water supply is through something called desalination, which is the removal of salt and other minerals from seawater to produce fresh water suitable for human consumption and irrigation. It is an expensive process and it's quite a complex process. What we would like you to do is to unscramble these 6 sentences that are on the screen to explain how the process takes place. So you need to pause the video, you need to read each one, you need then to decide where you think they go in that sequence. Once you are happy with your sequence, then unpause the video and we will show you the correct order. So off you go. Okay, if you haven't already done so, can you please pause the video because we are about to reveal the answers. Right, let's have a look. So we had the first one in the correct place in the sequence anyway. So seawater intake. Seawater is slowly drawn from the ocean. A protective grille means that marine life cannot swim into the structure. We then have infiltration, where pre-treatment filters remove solids such as sand and sediment. We then have reverse osmosis. Filtered seawater is pushed through ultra-fine membranes under high pressure. Fresh water will pass through, leaving seawater concentrate behind. We then have remineralisation. So desalinated water has minerals added to it to meet government drinking standards and guidelines and those health requirements. We then have 5, which is storage. Drinking water is stored before it gets distributed to regional water networks. And finally, we have water outlet. Concentrated seawater is returned to the ocean through diffusers to be diluted by ocean currents. Well done if you got that correct. Now, it is a complicated process. You can see why it's so expensive and why it is not appropriate in the places that need it the most. Right, it's just a quick reminder that in this unit of work, you do need to know an example of a large-scale water transfer scheme. Many of you will have done the Lesotho Highlands water projects, but some of you will have done others. We are going to move on to an on-balance activity that looks at some of the pros and cons of these large-scale water transfer schemes. On-balance activities are really good ones for those 6-mark questions where you might be asked to assess something and weigh up the pros and cons of it. In a 6-marker, if you're talking about a large-scale water transfer scheme, it would be good to get some key details in about the one you've studied. However, in this activity, I'm personally just going to focus on those benefits in general and the drawbacks in general. So what I would like you to do is to pause the video. I would like you to note down 2 benefits of large-scale water transfer schemes. Once you've got a couple down, then unpause the video and we can compare answers. Off you go. Okay, if you haven't already paused the video, please do so because we are about to reveal the answers. So let's have a look at a couple of benefits. So firstly, it increases the GDP, so the amount of money in the country for low income countries. This can then be spent on development and raising the standard of living. So for example, by you referring to the example of Lesotho, a huge chunk of the money that Lesotho makes, so the money that supports their economy, comes from selling their water to South Africa. If they didn't have this scheme in place, they would lose a huge amount of income. It also supplies the country with hydroelectric power, which can help economic development. So obviously when you are building new factories and trying to promote industry, having a source of energy there will make that much more straightforward. We now need to think about the drawbacks of large-scale water transfer schemes. So again, pause the video. What are the drawbacks of large-scale water transfer schemes? Note a couple down. Once you're ready, unpause the video and we'll see what you've come up with. Okay, if you haven't done so already, please pause the video because we are about to reveal. So firstly, you have the displacement of people to build dams. So when you build a dam, you obviously need to have a huge area of land behind it where you flood the land and you have a reservoir behind that. Generally ends up with the destruction of villages and towns and all sorts of farmland goes. So you do have widespread displacement of people to build dams. So it can create local opposition. We then have the fact that they are extremely expensive, so huge loans might need to be taken out to finance these big projects, which countries then get into huge amounts of debt for and end up paying back for years and years to come. Right, well done if you got 2 drawbacks and 2 benefits. So we're going to finish off the video here, just reminding you that as well as knowing about a large-scale water project, you also need to know about a local scale sustainable one. And on the screen here we've got a picture of the Weckl Basin River project, which some of you may have studied, but again it doesn't have to be this one. There are lots of them around the world that you could have studied. However, they do all have the same characteristics. So we're going to do a round of missing vowels to finish off. We've got 5 of them, and these are characteristics of small-scale sustainable water schemes. Let's have a look. So our first one hopefully is really easy, particularly as it is a term that I have just used. Let's have a look. It is small scale, so they do operate at a very small local scale. Number 2. So second word, hopefully quite recognisable. First one, you might need to have. Okay, let's have a look. It is appropriate technology, also known as intermediate technology. So this is low cost, low tech machines, for example, that local people can set up and they can maintain, and it isn't going to cause all sorts of problems in the community. So it has to be fairly straightforward so local people can maintain it. If it breaks down, they can fix it, etc. If you have something that's really high tech, it's firstly going to be very expensive, but also the people in the community are not going to have the skills to do anything about it if a problem arises. Number 3. So this is really important for these local scale sustainable solutions. Let's have a look. It is community management. So community management is making sure that local people are fully involved and they have real ownership of the project. And integral to that is this one here. So number 4. This is another key part that goes hand in hand with community management. Let's have a look. It is local decision making, so your local people are involved in the decision making. They're not just having something done to them. However, there is support needed, and the people that will support projects like this are these guys here. So number 5, our last missing vowels, key term is. And we have non-governmental organisation or NGOs. A good example of this would be WaterAid, which is a charity that works in developing nations, particularly across Africa, and they help local communities increase their water access. So, for example, it might be through installing hand pipes in local villages. Right, well done for getting to the end of the revision blast. We have covered the UK overview and water in this revision blast through a variety of activities, which will hopefully make you feel a little bit more confident as you go into your paper 2 exam. Please don't forget to have a look at the other revision blasts on our playlist, because we have got them in place for all topics, and it just leaves me to say to you, wishing you the very best of luck for those exams coming up. Good luck.